leader for the Denver trip. I think it's been a great experience for the kids and myself. I had a little taste of what it is to be a leader for the children, and what stuck to me the most was one of the sermons that Peter Young gave was be an example, to give a great testimony. And that's what I'm trying to challenge myself to do, to be a good example for the younger generation, be a good testimony, be thirsty for God's word. And I just want to say thank you for the trip and the support that you've given us for the trip. And yeah, thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to give my utmost gratitude to my parents, the church, and all the church members, because you guys all set up the garage sales, you prayed for us, and you supported us. Amen. And I really appreciate it. There are many things I learned throughout the Denver trip. I believe that God has really convicted me, because the lessons we learned were something that was really applicable to my life. Because as a Christian, I attend a public high school, so around me there's always temptations, whether it be drinking or drugs. And there are often times where I feel left out because I'm a Christian, and there are other people that are not believers, and they do things that sometimes I do want to be a part of. But I realize that there's only one true God, and He's the truest friend I could always have, and He's always with me, so I'm never alone. Amen. And I realize that in order to grow spiritually and resist the many temptations that I face throughout my life, that I have to always stay clean, and that I have to stay pure in God. And to do this, I have to trust Him, and I have to believe in His word. Because oftentimes, when we're physically dirty, that we feel the necessity to take a shower, but when we feel dirty in our hearts, we don't feel that same feeling to take a shower and clean our hearts. And that's something that really stuck out to me, because I never really think about these things when I sin or something. I don't really take the time to cleanse my heart and say, God, I'm sorry. I think that's something that I should really start doing. And another thing is, I learned to be a better example and to lead by example, because as a Christian, we have to have a strong testimony to present to our non-believer friends. Because when they see me as a Christian, they should say, he's different. So I think that I have to change the way I am to be separate from my non-believer friends, so that they realize what it's like to be a Christian and see how we are different from everyone else. And I think that when I show these things and show how I've changed, it becomes an example for the younger kids also, because I want to keep my heart clean and pure, not only for God, but also for those around me, like the little kids, so that they know what it's like to be a positive influence, and so that they could become a leader when they grow up as well.
Amen. Amen.
안녕하세요. My name is Hansel Tim. And first of all, of course, I'd like to thank my family for sending me to Colorado, and 목사님 for planning this all out, and also the church in Colorado, Korean First Baptist Church, for taking us in and having a good Bible trip and Bible camp. I'd also like to thank the Jang family for taking us into their house and giving us hospitality. And finally, I'd like to thank the Ajimas that did the garage sales, because they earned a lot of money for us, and without them we wouldn't have money to go to Colorado. And for what I learned there, I learned that we have to be a good testimony and set an example for others. You have to set yourself apart and be different from non-believers, because if you're the same as them and drink alcohol and smoke and just do ungodly things, they'll think that they're not different from that Christians aren't different from them, so they don't have to get saved. And so you have to set a good example for them and give them a reason to come to you and get saved. And also, there was a story that stood out to me. It was an alcohol story. It was a book by Paul Chappell asking if alcohol was alright for Christians, and it says that you can't preach the word to your friend at a bar, because that ruins your testimony. And there's better places to do it than a bar, and it shouldn't be a place you should go to, because you have to separate yourself from everyone else and stand out as a Christian and a godly leader. And if you do that, people will respect you and think that you're different, but not in a bad way. And later on in their life, they might come to you for advice because they know you're different and you're a Christian and respect you. And how to apply that to my life is to stand out to my friends and to the little kids in school and in church, to be a leader and be different from the non-believers, so people come to me for godly advice, and that's it.
안녕하세요. I'm going to save my things for last, and I'll just get right into the sermon that Peter Hyung taught that spoke to me the most, and it was about cleansing your heart. And to provide some background context, we spent the whole day playing basketball and sports, and we even swam. So when we ended up at home, all of us smelled like chlorine and sweat. So we all recognized each other's filth, and we were all eager to jump into the shower. And he brought up a good point that we don't feel the same way about our heart because most people don't see what we think, and sometimes we don't even recognize the sin that's covering our heart. And we ought to feel the same filth and want to jump into the shower spiritually and read the Bible and pray to God to cleanse us from our sins. And I thought that was really important to hear. That's it for that. And I think I want to thank a lot of the ajumas in the church. And I don't think I can name all of them, but they provided a lot of support for us and funded the trip, the majority of the trip. I want to thank 목사님 because he set up the orientations, and I think they set very good biblical principles to follow while on the trip. And I really thank David Young that much, but he made a lot of sacrifices, some of which I don't think I understand. But I think we really should thank David Young for the trip, and our parents too for sending us. And thank you.
안녕하세요. So to start off, I'd like to thank all the people of 중앙침례교회 that participated in helping us get to Denver. All the garage sales and training that was done was really meaningful. I'd also like to thank the James family for taking care of us over at Denver. I'd like to thank David Hyung, who guided us and helped us throughout Denver, and Peter Hyung, who taught us all the lessons during camp. And lastly, the KFPC camp and the church, who gave us lots to learn and had warm welcomes to us. And so during the camp, I experienced and learned a lot of valuable things, but the one that stood out to me was the fun between non-believer friends and Christians. So I usually hang out with my non-believer friends because they're all around my neighborhood. Most of them are non-believers and they just freely go around. And when I hang out with them, it seems fun, but it's not as memorable as times I hang out with my Christian friends. I learn more, it's more meaningful, and it's less tiring because we have more restrictions that allow us to be godly. So important things I learned from this camp were that I had to set examples, I had to set good testimonies for other people to follow, to make them realize that they're hungry and thirsty for God's words, and have to crave it. So being different from those guys is a good example, not a bad example, and being different is good in this case. And helping them crave for God's words and be saved, like all of us. And also, it was that Wednesday sermon about leading us and guiding others, the non-believers, that was really impactful for me. Because all around my neighborhood, I see non-believer friends, but they're not saved, and after life, they have to go to heaven. I want them there. So I've set a good example, a good testimony, and allow them to be craving for God's words and help and be saved. Amen. Thank you. Amen.
First of all, I'd like to thank my parents and all the parents. I'd like to thank them for sending us on this trip, and I'd like to thank Mr. Gill for being there with us. He did a lot for us, so I thank him. And in Denver, we had a lot of fun. You know, so it's pretty chill. We did stuff like horseback riding, hiking, swimming, playing basketball, and we played a lot of games. But also, I learned a lot, and one thing that stood out to me was one of the QTs we had, and it was about praying. And it basically says that we should all have time to pray, and if we don't, then we're doing something wrong, because praying should be like a priority, and we have to make time to pray, and yeah.